Hello folks, and welcome to this build video on the SER diagram 1741 two-plank ballast wagon that I'll be building from this 3D printed kit. Wagon should hopefully look a little bit like this when we're done, and my previous prototype test build can be seen here. So this is how the kit will come, hopefully. This is a prototype, so if it doesn't work then you probably won't be seeing this video. Yes, we have the main body, we have 4 of these wheel carriers, and down here, quite easy to miss, is the brake. I apologise for the lighting situation, the workbench does need a lighting upgrade at some point. So yes, this stuff is 3D printed in this orange resin. That may also change by the time we get to production. So the first thing to do with a 3D printed kit like this is to remove all this support material. I'm going to remove the main body, but I'm going to leave the brake and the 4 wheel carriers in place at the moment, because it will be much easier to prime those for painting while they're still attached to this structure. Otherwise you'll sort of blow them all over the place with the paint can. So the first thing I want to try and do is separate off this section here. Actually, I think I will remove the brake first. I'm going to hand paint that rather than prime it. So the support material, I don't know how well this will come out on camera. So it runs to a fine point at the ends. I need a pointy device. That will do. So it runs to a fine point where it meets the part. So the idea is that you can just pick the part, snap it off. So hopefully if that's visible there, that's one way of doing it. What you tend to end up with is little bits of the support material still left on, but we can always file them off afterwards. That's not a problem. It's also useful to have something to keep your bits in. In this case I'm going to use my other prototype wagon. So we need to sort of cut roughly down this line here. Just going to give that a bend to see where it breaks. It's not going to go cleanly, is it? I haven't tried this before, so it might work, it might not. But if we can sort of score the material down the back without pressing too hard, because we don't want to push the wagon into the table on the other side. See if we can create a line of weakness down here. This isn't sounding good. And then just try and break this off without putting pressure on the top, so I'm putting pressure on the side here to try and remove this. And again putting pressure on the line itself to try and make the break as clean as possible. Again, there's no real weakness in the top there, so let's try and move it around. Just be gentle and take your time. There we go. So now you can see the 4 wheel carriers. Hopefully you can see some of the detail on there. If you do have a drink, try and keep it out of the way of the support material, because this stuff does tend to ping off. And I haven't learnt that lesson apparently, because I usually end up finding some little bits in my tea. So what we can do here is either snap the ends off by hand like I have there and pull them off. This is why I'm working on a sheet of paper to collect all the bits. Pull them off by hand like so. Or the other thing you can do, if you want to be a little bit more precise, is get a pair of pliers. See if I can line this up. Dig in sort of around the support material there and just give it a little bit of a twist. Do you hear that? You can just hear when it snaps off at the end. Sometimes you can pull chunks out with the end of the support material. If you want to be extra careful, what you can do is get a Dremel tool or a piercing saw or something and just cut a couple of millimeters short of the support material here, and then just file back the rest. It takes a little bit longer, but it's a fair bit safer doing it that way. Now fortunately, on this model there aren't too many detail bits to work around, but you do have to be careful of things like the NEM pocket here. So if you're working on one of my steam locos or something, for example, you'd have guard irons and little bits of chassis detail under here that you'd have to be very careful around. This wagon model isn't so bad for that kind of thing. So I'm just going to go down and pull all of this stuff out. Try and keep as much of it as I can on the sheet. And try and ignore the noise of the wind howling around this rather tiny flat. Yes, I'm not the most professional video producer, it might show, but I'm afraid you'll just have to deal with that. I'm a modeller, not a video maker. Right, again I'm getting close to the... don't do that. Fortunately it's fairly light and therefore fine. Here we go, I've got rid of a couple of big sections there, which helps. So you can now see some of the underside structure we're looking at here. Got to be careful around the NEM pocket at the other end. This is more difficult because you've got it's printed at an angle, so we've now got more of this stuff in the way. Now, if I was a competent video editor, I'd speed all this up. But I think, given that this model is so small, there's not actually much need for that. Last bit with the pliers, you might have to pull out from some slightly more awkward areas where you can't get your fingers in. And the last bit is sort of slightly inside the pocket here, you might be able to see, if my autofocus is working. With a couple of little bits there. Let's get rid of those. Right. There we go, we have the main body. Hopefully you can see that reasonably in the gloom here. Okay, so the next point to work on, as the heater fires up, it's cold, okay? Again, if I was professional I would go and turn that off, but I don't want to freeze, so I'm not going to. You might be able to see on here, I don't know how well this is going to focus, not very by the looks of it. But along here, there are a few little ridges and bumps things of where the support material was attached. So the next thing to go through and do with a flat file, which I have here, is to just give that a quick file in a diagonal kind of way to keep it nice and flat. Just go through and take the rest of that material off there and the rest of that material off there. What I might also do, which is cheating slightly, is use a Dremel with a sanding disc, which is much quicker, but you have to be much more careful about what you do with that, to make sure you don't sand any of the detail off or anything like that. So I'm going to go and do that and be back in a second. So I've now done some filing just to smooth the pips off the body, and we've put it in a coat of primer as well, so hopefully you can see some of the detail on here if the camera will focus for me. And we've done the wheel attachments as well, and the springs. So the next thing to do is take these off the support material and trial fit them together. So this is where I'm going to switch to using pliers, because particularly if you can see around the end of the springs, there's some very thin material up the top here and we don't want to break that off by accident. And there's the first one out. You can see in here, if this focuses, there's a recess for the wheel to run in. And again, just taking your time with this. Just to make sure it all comes away cleanly. And hopefully you can see some of the spring detail on there as well, if that will focus. Which it won't. Oh well. So I've got two of the wheel blocks off now. Hopefully you can see some of the detail on here, if it will focus on that. You might be able to see also there's a recess in here for the wheel to run in, and of course the hole for the bearing. So we're just going to test fit these together. You can see on the end here there is one side with a pip on it and one side with a hole. All of these blocks are identical, so they just fit together like that. And that has worked first time, which is rather amazing. So essentially the idea is to clip these together with the bearings and the wheels in place and just slide them into place on the chassis. So we're just going to trial fit one of the bearings in here. It should just drop in, be a very slight push fit, and hopefully, if you can see that, it should drop in flush with the underside of the W arm there. Now, I haven't actually got the wheels for this project yet, so I'll show you that when it does. But let's just try this in the body first. It's likely to need a little bit of sanding and filing to fit. So that should slot together. Body turns over. That should drop in there, like that. And then that unit, to get it in the right place, just slides up until it stops on the base of the NEM pocket there. And then we hold that in place and flip it over. So you can see that spring is now in the right place. I've done a little bit more detailing work on the body now, so you can see I've got a coupling hook in and some painting done, and we're going to look at fitting the wheel sets. So we put the body down upside down. The way we're going to do that is by taking these wheel blocks. You can see I've super glued some top hat bearings in there. We're going to take our 12mm wheel set with the pinpoint axle, drop the end of the axle into the bearing, and the wheel should sit in the slot down here. Same thing with the other side, drop the bearing in first, and then just connect the two halves underneath, like that. And then this whole unit drops into the gap there, and we'll just slide up until it meets the bottom of the NEM pocket down here. So when happy with that, all I need to do is just put in a couple of drops of super glue. You can use any kind of glue you want really for this. I'd recommend super glue or Yoo-hoo. Slide it up into position there. Just hold for a few seconds. It should be stuck. It should also spin fairly freely. We're just going to do that with the other one, and then we'd be pretty much done. So you may notice our wagon has changed colour and gained some transfers. Of course it hasn't really. This is the first prototype. This is the one we've been working on so far. But there's a few errors on this one, so I haven't filmed the build of it. The next thing we need to do, which I forgot to mention earlier, is just glue on the brake. There is only one on this wagon, it's old enough for that. There's no locating or anything for that, you just have to line it up with a wheel on this side and glue it to the underside of the frames there. The next part we're going to make is the brake gear. So for this it's made from plastic strip 1mm by 0.5mm, and we're making this by hand because it's too small and too fine to print really. So we need three bits, one 5mm long, one 7.5 and one 35mm long. And that 35mm one, we're going to put a bit of a kink in there. So the idea being that it will come out from underneath frames, so this way like this. So I'm going to crack on with building that now. So we've finished attaching the brake gear now. You can see the main part with the kink in it. The longer 7.5mm part in front and the shorter 5mm part behind. So we're just going to give that a quick coat of paint and then the wagon will be done. So I've just added some coupling hooks to the model with the tails trimmed down. This wagon has such a short wheelbase that if you don't do that, the ends of the couplings will foul the axles. So we're just going to run it on this short length of test track. I'm only using a sort of standard DC battery for this. I don't have a proper controller here. We can see that it runs reasonably freely and the couplings hook up okay. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it shows how easy the kit is to construct. If you'd like any more information, please do have a look at the links and contact details in the description. So we now have the loco back. That is a wagon.